the green light has to be on.
Okay, again, my name is Concy Bokum, and this is Regina Wheeler, and we were the co-chairs of the sustainability group, and I'll introduce you guys in a minute. But our group was huge. It had people from a huge range of, our group was really loud. Actually, we weren't loud. We were large. Oh dear. Anyway, it was a big group with a lot of different kinds of expertise, and there's not enough room here for all of them. We will need all of them to be here to answer questions because the topics are so diverse, but I would like all of you who are on the group to stand up. And then if you, look at this. Yay, Kirsten, stand up. And we're going to need all of them to answer questions, so when you stand up to answer questions, please identify yourself. So I written my thing out because I know we're time bound, so if you'll give me a second to do this. Our group was tasked with developing action plans for advancing sustainability in four areas: water, energy, transportation, and food agriculture. I should note that transportation was added. It didn't appear in the earlier documents. We had a group with a range of expertise and experience, and I'm happy to report that what could have been difficult wasn't. Regina and I thank the mayor and his team for the great folks on the group and urge everyone to check who was on our group and the organizations that supported that work. We began by developing 13 criteria to be used in the selection of our recommendations. Those were either embedded in our charge, actionable in 1 year and not requiring significant resources, for example, and added reduction of greenhouse gases, resilience and adaptation, reduction of inequalities, synergy with the mayor's goals and those of, something's wrong here, and goals, and those of other advisory groups. We wanted interaction between the groups, and job creation as examples. In addition, our work is a companion to that of Sustainable Santa Fe Commission's 25 years plan, although with a far more limited time frame. We also decided not to break down into subgroups, but worked on all the topics together, and that worked. Our team is proposing 10 action items with 26 milestones related to those action items. Each action item lists the milestones that apply to that action item and which also indicate that several milestones support more than one action item. We do, however, we're not going to go into all of them, obviously, it's a lot. We do, however, want to highlight 3 sets of recommendations. Pamela Roy will discuss those recommendations that are inspiring and highly visible. Regina Wheeler will discuss those things that we can do now. And Beth Beloff, chair of the Sustainable Santa Fe Commission, will discuss actions that lay a foundation for short and long-term results. And we've worked hard to limit our remarks to allow more time for questions.
Thank you so much. And speaking of being inspired, this is an incredible group. And to Mayor Weber and your team, thank you for putting all of us together and in this room. And we look forward to working with everybody beyond the day. My name is Pamela Roy. I'm the Executive Director of Farm to Table. I also am the coordinator of the Santa Fe Food Policy Council. And so this was an incredible group to participate with. And we are so fortunate. There are so many inspiring things that are happening in our community. And some of the things we focused on were, for instance, the diversity of the groups, organizations, and institutions that are working with the city and within the city. We focused our initiatives and this idea of being inspired by solutions to mitigate poverty, to enhance our job opportunities in this community, and to address climate change. So first, one of the things that we want to recommend is continued and permanent funds for the Verity Fund. And the reason being, I'm going to give you a quick example just an example. The food security initiative that was actually inspired by the Verity Fund brought together YouthWorks. You got a chance to engage with them a little bit ago. Food Corps, what YouthWorks, Food Depot, Wildflower Network, Reunity Resources in the Community Farm, MoGrow, 5 after-school programs, Santa Fe Public Schools, and the Boys and Girls Club. And this is what it takes if you put a few dollars, a few bits of resources in the hands of leading community groups. This is what we can do together. So the example is that, so the forestry group, they took their thinnings and trimmings over to Reunity Resources at the community farm. They created compost, so soil to put into their garden and their greenhouse. They made beautiful produce. That produce went to YouthWorks to create incredible food that then went to these 5 after-school programs. And in the last 9 months, they have served over 46,000 meals to youth at risk. So this is what's inspiring. And through these multiple programs of the Verity Funds, close to 50 jobs have already transpired in our young people here in our community. So to build on that food momentum, one of our other recommendations actually is to do something like a local food campaign. Things are already starting. Our Santa Fe Public Schools buys local from our local farmers. We have an incredible farmers market. Just in the last several years, each year, our Santa Fe Public Schools have purchased over $60,000 of produce from up to 6 farmers right around our region, and serving 14,000 students local produce, which has actually increased participation in our public school meal programs. So something to be inspired by. So we're really encouraging and recommending that we strengthen our local food economy, which right now in Santa Fe, we receive $1 billion in gross receipts in food, just in the sense of sale of food, not in grocery stores, but everywhere else, $1 billion. So think about then the multiplier effect. If we then think about more local, takes time to do this, like the schools have done, but if we look at expanding access to local, healthy, affordable food by increasing locally grown and locally processed foods in schools, senior services, public institutions, and businesses all across the board, and really maybe create a campaign around this. So additionally, 2 other items that we really want to recommend that are in the works: instituting free use of Santa Fe trails and the paratransit systems, and to provide last mile solutions to reduce time and transit. And so again, the idea is helping everybody get somewhere, especially across our community, like to grocery stores, better food access, and other resources. And lastly, on my list are, and not least, is to actually convert 50 of the city's cars, 50 additional cars, to electric, and then do a wraparound promotion so that people know that. And this is working us towards reducing greenhouse gases in our community, and something that's really big in the sustainability plan. So.
Okay, and I'm going to, while all the recommendations from the Advancing Sustainability Working Group are things that can be done within 9 months, and in some cases will produce immediate results, and in some cases will lay the groundwork for progress, which is what Beth will be talking more about, we wanted to highlight some of our recommendations that are really ready for action now. And like Pam said, a lot of really good work has been done in the city over the years. The Sustainable Santa Fe Commission has done great work. The city council and the mayor have passed many resolutions, you know, codifying our commitment to being a sustainable community so that it really leaves the fertile ground for action and progress in this area. And it was interesting to note earlier that the Youth Advisory Group had as one of their recommendations that we have a strong sustainability plan. And so demonstrating ourselves as a sustainable community attracts businesses, attracts young people, as well as, of course, conserving our resources and saving us money. So the first recommendation in the things that we can do now is for the city council and the mayor to pass a resolution to support community solar legislation at the state level. That's a really hot topic right now. You know that homeowners, businesses, and government install solar systems on their facilities to save money and to move towards resiliency and conserve energy. But there's a number of places where that doesn't work. Renters, for instance, can't install solar on their home because it's not their home. And people that can't take advantage of the 30% federal tax credit, it doesn't make as much economic sense for those folks, so they don't install solar. Some facilities like City Hall, really, our City Hall, don't have any place to put the solar. The roof can't hold it and it's shaded anyway. So community solar is this thing that solves that problem and creates access for all of those types of facilities for access to clean, affordable, renewable energy. And it's currently actually not legal and allowed in New Mexico. So we need legislation at the state to direct the PRC to develop programs so that we can all have access to this. It's going to be a critical piece of Santa Fe achieving its carbon neutrality goals, because since there are a number of facilities where you can't get solar directly on the facility, you'll need to have a shared offsite facility that serves these buildings, and that's how it works. So there's a big array somewhere strategically located to support the grid, and then different people can buy into the system. The government can buy into it, businesses can buy into it, homeowners can. This is a huge opportunity to not only reduce energy costs, move towards more clean, renewable energy, but also to create local jobs. The Minnesota has had their community solar program for only 4 years, and they have 350 megawatts of community solar now that's supporting businesses, homeowners, and the government to have clean, renewable energy. And when you build solar arrays in your community, that creates local jobs, and it also brands us as a sustainable community. So supporting community solar as a city, that's really important recommendation. And then, so solar is a great resource and generation source for energy, but one of the generation sources for energy that we forget about a lot is energy conservation. It's supposed to be the first. And so one of our recommendations is that we expand energy conservation in city, commercial, and residential buildings across the city, and adopt the new Energy International Conservation Code, IECC 2018. And so right now, the city of Santa Fe and the state of New Mexico use the 2009 International Energy Code, and DOE predicts that that New Mexico could save $102 million annually by adopting new energy code. Certainly, putting insulation in a building is cheaper than building a new gas plant to provide more energy for an inefficient building. And then the last immediately implementable action that we put on our list here was to solarize the airport. There's actually 2 resolutions directing that already. And so the airport's going through some construction and renovation and a new master plan. And by having solar at our airport, it would really brand us as a sustainable community. It saves money on electricity. It's already been directed by the council, and we're underway in designing that new facility, so we should get solar on there right now. And that's it.
Great. Thank you, Regina. In order to lay the foundation for implementing our recommendations, as well as those of the 25-year sustainability plan, there are 4 areas that we stress. The first is to create an organizational framework in the city for action. And that would include creating an Office of Sustainability authorized to coordinate implementation of sustainability policies and plans across the city, and driving the use of best practices in triple bottom line decision-making criteria and outcomes. Create an internal sustainability council made up of champions within each department, many of whom have weighed in on the 25-year sustainability plan, and this would be coordinated through the Office of Sustainability, and find formal means to collaborate with the county on sustainability solutions that we all are concerned about in our area. Second, expand our renewable energy options through legislative as well as administrative changes at the state level. And toward that end, we propose that the city take the lead in building a New Mexico clean energy coalition of cities and counties, with emphasis on reducing legislative and administrative barriers to widespread, competitive, and affordable renewable energy. In support of community solar it could help craft the terms of that community solar legislation that Regina articulated in ways that could most benefit our communities and the state's economy. The coalition could intervene in future PRC cases and support clean energy legislation in the 2019 legislature, which is why it's important to do this now. The city of Santa Fe can act in unison with other cities and counties, starting with Albuquerque and Santa Fe County, in support of energy policies that support our goal of carbon neutrality. Also, we can immediately weigh in on current PRC cases that could negatively affect our city's energy options, as in the first application by El Paso Electric before the PRC now for community solar. There are some issues that we can certainly weigh in on. Third, in addition to solarizing the airport for all of the reasons that Regina gave, which are the right ones, we need to increase on-site solarization of many more city facilities, because that is currently the only means that we have of solarizing those facilities. As laid out in a resolution agreed upon earlier this year, request proposals to solarize all city facilities where feasible, not all are, and including public-private financing options. Just incentivize the private sector to come up with great ideas, and then take that set of proposals and plan to solarize alternatives in an effort to move toward our goal of 100% renewable energy within city facilities. And fourth, increase our efforts to conserve water in both the city and in the community, as well as at the mayor's home. Water is indeed the lifeblood of our city today and in the future. We need to protect it. So leverage our successes in water conservation and reduce even more water use in the private sector through expansion of mandates and incentives. Increase the use of rebates and work with partners like HomeWise in the private sector to provide low-interest loans that help low and moderate income families use less water, reduce our reliance on non-renewable groundwater supplies in times of drought to maintain an adequate balance of water in reserve, and audit city water use and reduce. I want to give a very special thanks to YouthWorks for catering this event and showcasing their food program, which was developed through the Verity Fund. They've connected all of the dots in their food program, as Pam mentioned, from the production of sustainable food to the creation of the food that is then delivered to people in need, and all the while training our youth. This is, in fact, and the food is out there. It's been catered, and the catering company idea came out of the Verity Fund project. This is a spectacular example of what can happen when we seed creative problem solving at the nexus of poverty, climate change, and job training. This group really stepped up. You can see their video on their website that describes the program further. Please feel free to ask us questions. Thank you.
Again, write your questions down, hold your card up, and we'll have staff pick them up, and the mayor will have the first comment and question.
I'm going to call on my wife, Frances, to report on all of the water conservation measures we've implemented at our house. She was just meeting with people to change our irrigation system, separate the black and gray water, implement an entirely new approach to water conservation, thanks to the city's phenomenal resources that come. And if you haven't already downloaded Eye on Water, please do it. If you haven't already gotten a free consultation from the city to get your water conservation advice, I recommend it. Francis did it, and I think we've cut our water use by something like 33% since the New Mexican very helpfully pointed out our profligate use of water. You know, it's important to be a case study, whether for good or for not so good. But we're all open to learning. Great work, you guys. Phenomenal work, and an amazing list of both things we should be doing as action items, and then cross-reference to the milestones of ways to move forward. I thought I would come back to the solarization of city facilities as a model example, a model project, and maybe we could get a little more, dig down a little deeper in how we would move forward on that. Something where the city has control over our own destiny, has the ability to do business how we would like to do business. What steps specifically do you think the city can and should be taking to move effectively towards creating a good example by solarizing as many of our facilities as we possibly can?
Well, thank you so much for that question, Mayor. Since I've been working in the solar industry for the last 7 years, I can provide some suggestions. Actually, this building has a 100 kilowatt array on the roof, you should know, and it was installed in about 2010, right? And it's actually a really interesting configuration where a third party owns the system and the city pays them for the electricity. So that's a power purchase agreement, a third party ownership. And that's an opportunity that's really sort of extremely ripe right now because there's a 30% federal tax credit available for people that own systems when you're private and you're a taxable entity. And that's something that the city can't take advantage of because they're not taxable. So this is an opportunity to bring private sector money in to own systems connected to city facilities and allow the city to get a lower rate of electricity than they're currently paying the grid, not have to have the capital investment, and have clean energy connected to the facility, which is really great. And the first step for that really is to take the electric bills and take a look at them because it's really a mixture of, you know, how much electricity is used, what's being paid for the electricity right now, what's the size of the facility, the interconnection, and that kind of thing. And that's the first step in evaluating where to put the new arrays. And Beth has a little bit to add.
Yeah, I just want to add that also a first step is looking at how to reduce energy use, so that when you actually do solarize, you're minimizing what you have to solarize. And so the city has been engaged with an ESCO, energy service company, that has been evaluating some of the buildings in the city, and so those would be certainly some ripe areas to start. After we fulfill some of the recommendations from Amoresco.
I want to pick up on one other point you made in terms of transportation, and that is dealing with the last mile problem. I've mentioned a couple times today that I was back in Boston at the Conference of Mayors gathering. One of the cities that was present talked about having created a non-profit version of Uber for their community. So that there was actually a way, just as we're doing Verity, to do local feeding and close the loop on giving young people a chance to make a living, earn a living, learn a living, and produce food. A nonprofit version of Uber could create a transportation solution grounded in the neighborhoods, in the community, providing transportation for that last mile or more, but also recycling the dollars locally and keeping it inside the community.
And imagine if those were low carbon vehicles.
Okay, consolidating city facilities, for example, City Hall, Siler Complex, Senior Center, etc., could really benefit as a central location for city services as well as adapting solar. How feasible, and did you look at this?
I think the question was about putting more of the city functions in one building and co-locating. And I don't know, I think that's a really important issue to look at it. And I think the city staff has been talking about it for some time, certainly with the Sifuad campus it's got to be a consideration. But one thing to say is absolutely for sure is it certainly does facilitate solarization. And that Santa Fe University of Art and Design campus actually has a single meter, and it actually has some land, so you could solarize that campus really readily. But we didn't actually consider the consolidation of city facilities as part of our charter.
If the services for the city were consolidated as on that campus, there could also be a microgrid that could incorporate solar, much like what SFCC is doing, but also utilize other means of power and manage it behind that 1 meter.
Can the coalition of cities and counties also be encouraged to advocate for sustainable policies at the national level? There are a number of vital initiatives that can only be implemented there.
So that's a very broad question in one sense, but just an example. So the Santa Fe Food Policy Council actually is, and we have a food plan, which is a city-county food plan, but we work with the State Food Policy Council. We work at the legislature, and we work at the federal level. So right now we have the federal Farm Bill, which many of us would want to call the Food and Farm Bill. 80% of that is a supplemental nutrition assistance program, but many programs here benefit from the Farm Bill. And so we work literally across those policy domains. And school food's one of those. Senior services, Gino's here today. Our meal programs sometimes are federally mandated. But there's many things we can do at the local level, but we have to walk that policy up and down that string at all times, and a lot of that is happening in this room and beyond. So.
Okay, will this project partner with Santa Fe Community College trade students to provide work? They also have a solar program as well.
I think that is a key part of our recommendations, and the sort of why the city is so committed to sustainability. It's not just to conserve resources, but it's a great economic opportunity. We have local solar companies. New Mexico is where solar started with the earthships and passive solar. The opportunity to construct energy conservative buildings and do retrofits, that's a big economic driver, and that creates the jobs for those students. And it's so critical because there is so much workforce development that's focused on sustainability, but we have to do the other part, which is to stimulate the market to create the jobs. And so by having, adopting new energy code, that'll help us, because then, buildings have to get up to speed and they have to have those new energy efficient systems in them. We do create the jobs that are so critical to make a pathway for those students.
I also want to say I think SFCC is exemplary in terms of its sustainable technology program. I've seen nothing like it thank you, Randy. And so it really is an incredible opportunity to train those youth who end up in the jobs that we need to create.
A 10,000 square foot greenhouse to grow food. So.
Okay. Yes, we're out of time. I want to thank the group for presenting. It was a great presentation.